I just took 12 of the most famous trading strategies of all time, and using Claude Fable, I wanted to find out which one would get the best results. And what I learned was staggering. Out of the 12 strategies, only one of them actually beat buying and holding Bitcoin. But then I took it a step further and I wanted to see if you could apply these same strategies to the stock market, and it blew my mind. So in today's video, I'm going to give you a crash course on how to use Claude to backtest trading strategies, how to put them onto your actual TradingView chart so you can see all of the real data, and how to prompt Claude yourself in order to create your own custom strategies. I've got some prompts in today's video that are going to blow your mind. If you use them, you're going to be able to create strategies better than 99% of people. And it's the same system that I'm personally using to refine strategies like the EMA cross, which made $168,000 and make it even better, more consistent, and have less drawdowns over time. All right, so firstly, I'm going to show you how you can use Claude to backtest strategies. I'm using Fable inside VS Code, but if you don't have access to Fable, you can also use Opus. It's going to do a good job, but it's not quite as smart as Fable. But with any model, you'll be able to build Pine scripts so you can actually backtest real strategies in TradingView. So the first strategy that we are going to backtest is a very famous strategy, which is the RSI mean reversion strategy. So we're asking Claude to take RSI mean reversion and turn it into a fully objective rule set for Bitcoin USD on the daily time frame. What you'll see is it now creates a set of rules that you're going to apply to the chart. And at the end of this video, I'll explain how you can actually make this trade automatically for you. So one step is backtesting strategies and using Fable to refine a trading strategy. That's the first most important step. And then secondly, you can move on to the execution piece, which I'll touch over at the end. So the good thing about Claude is you'll already see it started to get strategic here. So for example, it's not going to trigger an entry if RSI just automatically goes below 30, because then you're going to get a bunch of false entries. So it makes sure that the RSI recovers above 30 and dips again before a new signal fires. It also has inbuilt stop logic to protect against downside. And it also has exit rules and built-in position sizing. And you can see that it's deliberately fixed certain issues with the original strategy to make it more applicable to real trading. So now I'm going to ask it to convert this logic into a real Pine script. So I'm going to ask it, write this as TradingView's Pine script V6 strategy code, include a commission per side. So this gives us more accurate data if you are actually trading, fills on the next bar open, and $100,000 in starting capital. I'm going to leave all of the prompts from today's video in a setup guide that you can claim using the link in the description below to give you absolutely everything so you can get started doing this stuff yourself. What I'm going to be doing over the next few weeks is taking you guys through a journey of trading bots, the same journey that I've been going on over the past few years. So make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on, because today sets the tone, showing you what you can do and how to practically backtest. And I'll also go a bit into execution, but in future videos, we're going to build upon this. So make sure you're watching every video, because over the next few months, you're going to build the skill with me so you guys can automate your own trading. The models are getting so good these days that if you don't understand how to automate and augment your research and execution, you are going to fall behind. And that's why I'm taking this very seriously in my own trading and investing, if you've been following my content over the past few months. All right, you can see here, it's given us the actual strategy for us to test within TradingView. So what you want to do is you want to copy the entire Pine script. Then you want to go into TradingView. We're going to use Bitcoin on the daily. Afterwards, we're also going to test this on stocks, because the results are actually crazy if you use some of these strategies on stocks. Then you want to click the little pyramid down here on the right-hand side of TradingView. If you click that, it's going to open up the Pine script editor. I'm going to delete all of this because that was another strategy I was testing. Then I'm going to enter the strategy directly from Claude. And what you want to do is click Add to Chart. And this is going to add a strategy to the chart so we can see the results over different time frames. Now, this is actually really good. There was an error. But this is actually something that's great to show you. Whenever there's an error, you just screenshot, go back into Claude, paste the image, ask it to fix the error. I also asked it to get rid of the time frame so we can look at other time frames. Then go back into the Pine editor, enter in the revised strategy. And now you can see it's populated the entire history of all of the trades. So on the daily time frame, this strategy's made $5,200 total P&L. If you flip across different time frames, you'll obviously see different results. So this strategy being executed on the H4 chart has actually lost $11,000. On the 12-hourly chart, it's lost 2.7. So it definitely is optimized for the daily. But of course, this isn't a strategy that you would want to use, right? We're going to get to the profitable strategy soon. But I want Claude to tell me why it isn't profitable. And this is the real power of Claude, using its strategic brain to make tweaks to strategies to make them more profitable. So what we're going to do is, if you click on this little grid icon here, you can actually download the CSV file. This will save to your downloads. Then if you go back into Claude, I can actually drop this file and I can ask it to explain the win rate and max drawdown and what it's telling me. So while this is loading, let me explain to you why this is so powerful. Let's say you have a strategy, right, that you execute. Let's say you follow a trader. Let's say, you have a rough framework. What you need to be doing is you need to be taking that framework, putting it down into a series of voice notes to create MD files, which you can see on my left here. These have all of the context on my trading, my strategies, and my business. Then you want Claude to take all of that data that's in your head, like this mental edge or a strategy that you're trying to execute, and you want to use it to look at real parameters so you can backtest whether in the past that would have worked. Like, imagine putting all this effort into learning a trading strategy and then it doesn't even work. So you need to be backtesting your own strategies and tweaking them over time as you actually trade. So Claude should, if you're trading, pretty much be open all day on another monitor or another desktop, and you just go back and forth like this and constantly refine things. It's so powerful because you are now building an AI-powered strategy. And then the next step is plugging in execution so you don't even need to trade. Obviously, I still recommend discretionary trading if you're trying to become a trader, but the ideal world is that Claude would flag you every single time there's a trade opportunity that matches your parameters. And then if you need to go in and tweak execution, you can tweak execution. But that is the most powerful way to trade. We're moving away from discretionary traders having an edge to those that use AI having an edge. I truly, truly believe you will not be able to win trading or investing without being heavily AI augmented. And all the top firms, all the top trading desks, all the top quants, they are now using AI to trade. They have the most sophisticated models. They got Fable before anyone else. You need to be using this stuff. And the good news is, there's still a massive opportunity because not everyone is doing this. In fact, trading content online, when I was researching for this video, I realized that there's just such a lack of good content. So I want to provide this to you guys to show you what you can really do now, because there's just so much you can do. So what it's actually done is it's analyzed the strategy and it identified that one of the biggest issues is the entry frequency. So as a bit of a test, I'm going to say this. The big issue is this actually underperformed holding Bitcoin and trades weren't flagging frequently enough. How would you tweak this strategy, which is a mean reversion strategy, to be more profitable over time and more consistent with less drawdowns? Please tweak this into a new Pine script, which I can backtest. What's really important, and this is something Fable can help you do, is actually understanding why you're using a strategy. So a mean reversion strategy basically lets you capitalize when price has moved too far away from the mean. So too far in a negative or a positive direction. And you can use RSI in order to track momentum. Whereas the next strategies we get into are different. They might use EMAs, so track moving averages, or they might be pure breakout strategies, which rely on positive momentum. So it's important to fundamentally understand why you are taking on a certain strategy. Is it to take advantage of oversold conditions? Is it to accumulate over time in an uptrend? Or is it to swing trade or breakout trade? So your trading style will impact the strategy that you iterate on. And obviously where the market is at a certain time will impact the strategies that you use as well. And on this channel, I'm going to bring to you the best strategies based on the different periods we are. For example, right now in Bitcoin, you'd want to use a swing trading strategy because Bitcoin is in a range. So something that takes advantage of choppy conditions, and definitely this could involve some sort of RSI strategy, is what you would want to implement. Whereas if we were in a full uptrend, like equities are right now, you would want to use more of a long continuation strategy. So that is a really important part of trading that I just wanted to clarify. All right, we have the new strategy in the meantime. So we want to copy it over, put it into Pine script. As homework, I want you to go and do this. I want you to just practice making some strategies if you haven't already, putting them into Pine script, just getting a feel for backtesting, getting a feel for prompting with Claude, even if it's Opus, and that way, when you watch the next video, you're ready for the next step. I want to build on this over time with you. All right, the new strategy has way more trades, way more trades. So it's definitely fixed that aspect. So I actually just tested it and redesigned it again. There were some issues with the stop loss, which are diagnosed. And interestingly, and this is the really important thing for understanding what you're building, Fable said that a mean reversion play offers smoother equity curve and shallower drawdowns. It's a sharp play, not a hodl beater. I'll show you what the hodl beater is soon, but understanding why you use the strategy is also quite important. So the new strategy makes money, but it's still clearly underperforming buying and holding Bitcoin. So let's move on to a strategy which actually can. Now, this strategy is quite smart because it's effectively engineered to only own or trade Bitcoin to the long side when it has positive momentum. So it sits in cash when Bitcoin's losing momentum and enters when it's gaining momentum. This is best for trending markets. So if Bitcoin is in a strong uptrend, or you can flip it if it's in a strong downtrend, this strategy works. But in choppy sideways markets, it wouldn't be as effective. You know the saying, cut your losses, let your winners run? It's a famous saying in markets. That's effectively what this strategy encapsulates. For example, maybe right this second you wouldn't use this on Bitcoin, but you might use it on Hyperliquid, which is in a big uptrend. So you can also apply different strategies to different assets at different times. And we'll also check it on NASDAQ, which is in a strong uptrend. This might work very well for an asset like that. So you want to change your approach based on where an asset is in its cycle. So now we're going to take this new strategy, the EMA strategy. We're going to put it into TradingView. Now, this strategy performs much better. On $100,000, it actually made a 748% return on the daily, which is crazy. Obviously, it's not factoring in exact position sizing, etc., which we could model separately. But just for example purposes, it's pretty insane. And that's obviously because it's an aggressive momentum trading indicator. And at the end of the day, Bitcoin's gone up for aggressive periods since 2020. But let's go to July 1st, 2023 and have a look at performance. And that's a P&L of 175,000, which corresponds to the dashboard that I showed you at the start of this video. So if you had this open since 2023, just to capture last cycle, so excluding the other cycle, which we showed before, it would have made 175,000. And pretty much every single time frame that you use, this has been a profitable strategy. So I explained what it did before, but let's actually hear it from Fable as well. Let's get it to analyze why this strategy is actually working. And before this video, this is the one that I identified out of pretty much all the major strategies that you've heard of that actually beat just buying and holding Bitcoin. Not only since 2020, since 2013, since 2023, etc. But let's actually ask AI as well. Let's say, could you please explain how the strategy works, why it's been so effective, and how you would tweak it to make it even better? And me saying even better probably isn't specific enough, because better could be multiple things in trading. Better could be better risk management, so drawdown protection. Better could be better execution, so jumping on a trend faster, but then you risk getting whipsawed, so you have to keep that in mind. Or better could just be more profitable, which obviously as a trader, that is the end goal. But if you have to take on a bunch of risk for the chance of becoming more profitable, that's not a great risk reward trade-off. So the best strategies have a mix of everything, and the best strategies are balanced and are consistent over time and make sense based on the current market conditions. By the way, I'm going to touch on how to actually make these strategies execute on your behalf at the end, but I'm also going to do a dedicated video just on that as my next video, so make sure you subscribe. So this strategy, as Fable says, guarantees that you'll be long during every sustained uptrend and you'll be flat within a couple of weeks of every sustained downtrend. That's ultimately why it's so effective, because it's a trending strategy. And this is actually similar, by the way, to my general strategy that I was discretionarily doing for years. It wasn't quantified into a set of parameters like this, but it is generally what you're trying to do in markets, ride momentum. But it does have some tweaks. It would trail the exit, so it would try and fix that leak. It would dampen the chop bleed. It would leave the entry alone to not make the entry smarter, so it doesn't want to over tweak, and it would validate before celebrating. So let me actually do something. Let me ask it, all right, improve the strategy based on what you would think would make it better, and then I'm going to test it to see if it actually improved the results. And one of the reasons I'm actually making this video is to show you my workflow instead of just coming with a strategy and chucking it up and being like, oh, it made 170,000. Like, no, I want to touch on the why, and I want to show you how to go back and forth with Claude to iterate and make improvements. And by the way, we're going to test this on NASDAQ as well to see how this did on the stock market, because that's obviously where we still have momentum. So this could potentially be relevant right now. So let's see. It has the new strategy. Let's see if it actually improved things or whether it made things worse. So we're going to replace it here. We're going to hit refresh. And remember, before it was 173,000. Now it's 80,000. So it actually technically became less profitable since 2023. So I asked it why, and it said all three of its improvements actually backfired. It was a genuinely useful result, but the conclusion is that the baseline deserves to win, not that the test was unfair. So it says that if you still want to hunt for genuine improvement, the honest directions are the ones that don't touch the signal. Volatility scaled position sizing. And this is another good lesson, because it shows that sometimes simplicity is the key and that you should optimize for different things like drawdown protection, etc. Now, I told you I'd look at it on NASDAQ, so let's do exactly that. let's put the original, the one that was more profitable, on Bitcoin onto NASDAQ, and let's see, since 2023, what would have happened in equities. And a pretty good return, 52.38%. The only thing is, equity spot has gone up 100% since then, so it actually underperformed if you were just buying and holding, which is obviously what you're trying to do at the end of the day. Obviously, this does factor in fees, but that's also something, realistic that you're going to deal with on exchanges. From 2020, it's up 137%, but once again, technically less than just buying and holding equities. Of course, to iterate on it, then you would go back to Claude and you would work out the reasons why it underperformed. So that's essentially like the mental flow that you want to use. You want to work out what, in theory, should be a good strategy. Are we going for a ranging strategy, a momentum strategy? What assets should we apply it to? And then what changes do we need to make it effective in practice? The coolest thing about Claude is you can backtest infinite strategies. So you can set a script to actually keep backtesting strategies on different pairs. So it learns and improves and gets better over time. So I'm actually running that right now in the background. It's basically just scanning strategies all day. I'm using Hermes Agent to help me. So I'm going to report back and tell you what my findings are, which is going to literally go through thousands of strategies to try and find the outliers that are actually profitable. But obviously the EMA strategy I showed you today is profitable, and that's proven on the Bitcoin chart that it actually outperforms buying and holding Bitcoin. So earlier in the video, I said that I'd elaborate on the actual execution piece. So let's say you find a profitable strategy like the EMA one that we found, and you're like, all right, now I want to actually implement this on Bitcoin or on another pair. What you actually need to do is use a trading MCP. There are many ways to go about this, but if you're using Bybit, for example, a centralized exchange, you need to use their MCP server. So your Claude or whatever agent or agent harness you're using actually plugs into the exchange to execute on your behalf. So I would use Claude Code as my agent. I'd use a tool call within the application to call upon a Bybit MCP server. That will execute, so it'll talk to your exchange API, which you connected to fill a position. Obviously, you need to give it an API key to do this. And then all of this can be automated. In the next video I'm going to elaborate a lot more on the execution side, because there's the backtesting and the theory and how to use Fable to, backtest and generate results. But then there's obviously the execution layer, which I know is what all of you guys want, but it's important to have an understanding of all of this first. So make sure you subscribe for that. I'm going to leave the full architecture though in the guide that I'll leave down below. And that's also going to contain the exact prompt for the EMA strategy that was very profitable today, as well as the logic behind it and how you can backtest your own. So then it'll be easy. You can just drag and drop it into Claude, instead of having to develop a prompt yourself. It'll save you some time. And then in future videos, we're going to continue to build upon this. So I'm very, very excited for this content. Hopefully you enjoyed this video today, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.